This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 175, about Iron Fist, season 2, episode 1, Fury of the Iron Fist. Welcome back, fellow Defenders. This is episode 175 of Defenders TV Podcast, and we're here talking about Iron Fist Season 2. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hi, I am one of your other hosts, John.
And rounding out the group, I am the immortal Ironfoot, Chris.
Coming to you live from his own echo chamber, Chris Jones. Welcome back, Chris.
Yes. So for our fellow Defenders who are just joining us, and for our fellow Defenders who have been listening to us for 174 episodes, I am now recording from a brand new podcast studio room. Unfortunately, the podcast studio room is bare, so please bear with us for a small amount of time as my echoey echo chamber will slowly muffle to a nice audible nothing.
Yes, fellow Defenders, Chris has a lovely, warm and rich tone to his voice.
Usually.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great to be back with season 2 of Iron Fist. If you're joining us, fellow Defenders, for the first time, because some people actually skipped season 1 of Iron Fist and are being told that this one's going to be the season to bring them on board. So they're going to start at the first episode of season 2. So we will guide your hand, fellow Defenders, throughout this season of Iron Fist. We're going to be recording our episode-by-episode reviews. The first 6 episodes we're going to be recording before the release of the show, and we're going to be adding in your feedback at the end of those episodes. So if you want to send us any feedback, just email us at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. And to keep subscribed to the podcast so you can get the episodes as they're released, all you need to do is just go to our website at defenderstvpodcast.com, where you can pick up our podcast on any good or evil podcast catcher, like Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts.
Yes, I mean, you can't actually keep him off the Marvel Netflix sphere at the moment, Danny Rand. He's been in Defenders, he's been in Luke Cage Season 2, what was it, Episode 10. Mm-hmm. Now he's on to Season 2 of his own series, and it really isn't that long ago since Season 1 in the scheme of these Marvel Netflix shows. Yeah, yeah. Just can't get rid of him, which is a great thing.
Absolutely. He didn't get his 2-year break like most of the other shows got, which is really good.
Yeah. He is very welcome back onto the TV waves, internet waves, and the podcast waves.
Absolutely.
Yes, he is. But I wanted to talk about one quick thing. So first, Derek, as per usual, would you give us the episode details? There's a special new someone joining us for season 2 of Iron Fist that I can't wait to talk about because this gentleman has been amazing. So could you give us the episode details of the written and directed by?
Absolutely. This episode was written by M. Raven Metzner, the brand new showrunner for season 2 of Iron Fist.
Yes, this gentleman has been fantastic. He's all over Twitter, single-handedly with an Iron Fist of his own, driving the hype for season 2. Mm-hmm. And I cannot say he is the Chio Croker for Iron Fist now. This man is a guiding hand. He apparently, and from what we've seen, fully understands the property. He understands the characters. He knows the ballpark he's playing in, but he also knows the fans. Mm-hmm. So he's been putting out tidbits all along on the way up to the launch this September 7th. And I can't wait to see him continue to drop tidbits over the remaining weeks as people slowly kind of consume season 2, because you just know, based on what he's put out so far, I'm like, oh, he has an army of tweets in his back pockets with all nice Easter eggs, tidbits of information behind the scenes. Yeah, no, I can't wait to see more from this gentleman.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. He does come from a little bit of a history with Marvel. Back in the day, long time ago now, he did write the original Elektra movie, the spin-off from the original Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck in the role of Daredevil. So while he was a writer at that time, it was very early on in his career. We've seen a few episodes of Iron Fist, and we know that the show is very different from season 1. We're not going to talk about any of the future episodes. We'll talk about those as we go through each of our episodes. But I think he's doing a really good job. But you can tell the reason why he got the gig on Elektra was because he did have the knowledge of the comic books of Elektra. He was trying to do something different, but a movie isn't just the writer.
Yes, I have a soft spot in my heart for that movie.
Is it somewhere around the bags of sand, as soft as those?
Yes.
Okay.
I must say, I quite enjoy going back to Elektra.
Excellent.
So great to have him on board. Really cannot wait to see what he brings to season 2. But certainly from this first episode, I'm really enjoying what he's bringing.
Absolutely, yeah, really excited to have a brand new showrunner on season 2 of Iron Fist. This episode was directed by David Dobson, another newcomer to the world of Iron Fist and the world of Marvel and Netflix. Lots of projects in the pipeline coming up, including a follow-up to his comedy movie Wedding Crashers, interestingly. David Dobson has also worked in the area of martial arts, kind of comedy martial arts, with Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson on Shanghai Nights. I want to talk about that one a little bit later as we get into the episode. But he has also worked with Robert Downey Jr., the kingpin of Marvel himself, on his movie The Judge. So he's had some experience within the Marvel framework, I suppose, at least.
This is a great director to have an opening episode on. And I, like you, want to talk about the Shanghai Nights piece. So let's get into that later on, I think.
I think we'll be talking about it. And one final new bit for this season of Iron Fist. Each episode of Iron Fist Season 2 is named after a title of a comic book from the Iron Fist. This episode, Fury of the Iron Fist, many fans of Iron Fist will know this. This is the title of Marvel Premiere Volume 1, Number 15, which gave us the first appearance of Iron Fist. So nice that they're already referencing that. It was quite difficult to make sense in season 1 of the references they were taking because they were all from martial arts moves or moves that didn't really exist in the real world. So quite difficult to get what they were and what they were referencing last season. This season, much easier. We'll be talking about them each episode, though. But speaking of which, John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis of Iron Fist Season 2, Episode 1, Fury of the Iron Fist?
Sure. With the destruction of Kunlun, Danny Rand and Colleen Wing return to New York, where, with the aid of the Defenders, they confronted and beat the Hand. With the loss of Matt Murdock still fresh in their minds, and taking his advice, Danny and Colleen relocate to her dojo in Chinatown as their new home. Danny has left the running of Rand Enterprises to his partner, Ward Meachum, and instead he lives and breathes on the streets in Chinatown as a worker for Royal Owl Moving, where he meets an artist and photographer by the name of Mary. At night, Danny works alone to keep the streets of his new home safe as a turf war rages between two triad gangs, the Golden Tigers and the Hatchets, as they battle for control of the void left behind after the demise of the Hand. At Colleen's new job in a Chinatown community centre, she receives an unexpected package from her childhood that is embossed with her family coat of arms and begins to investigate how it ended up back in her possession. Meanwhile, Davos, Danny's brother and former best friend from Kunlun, plots with an angry Joy Meachum on a secret plan that could disrupt all that Danny has built.
So every major character from season 1 is pretty much included in here. Everyone that was alive at the end of the season anyway.
We just need zombie Meachum.
Yes, the zombie head of Harold Meachum returning. Maybe later on in the season. We never know. Fellow Defenders, previously we have talked about our top 5 in terms of bullet points in The Punisher, incantations in Doctor Strange, bulletproof points for Luke Cage. But for Iron Fist, we're going to change it up. We're going to be talking about our top 5 based on the tournament scoring system for martial arts. We're going to be using top 5 points for this system. And
makes sense.
Just so we can refer to it a little bit, if we do have a 6th point, we can call that the golden point because that's the score winning point in Taekwondo. That's how they use it. So it'll be top 5 points and there may be a golden point if we get 6 points. Does that work?
Ooh, yeah.
It does, but additionally, this could be the glowing golden point of Iron Fist. There you go. It does glow gold or yellow, but close enough.
That might work. John, do you want to take us away with our point number 1? We're in Chinatown.
Yes, we are in Chinatown. So this is a new location for Iron Fist. Him and Colleen have shacked up at Colleen's old dojo. No longer filled with mattresses and sharp, pointy stuff, but instead a new kitchen and open plan living for the two lovebirds. I think this is really nice seeing these two together, having almost an ordinary kind of relationship. Mm-hmm. I think it's really fresh, actually, for the superhero Marvel Netflix shows. It feels kind of down to earth, it's making tea. I like the fact that Danny Rand's office where he, has all the video surveillance, is shoved in one corner. It really looks like a lived-in space, but yet they've moved to Chinatown. Effectively, Danny had moved back in season 1 to New York. He was kind of crashing in different places. Colleen's dojo was a community dojo for sort of rough kids in the neighborhood, trying to pull them out, but ultimately feeding them into the sort of mincer that was the hand, ultimately.
Yep.
And so here now, the Chikara dojo in Chinatown is Danny and Colleen's home.
And do you know what I really like about that? It's just the fact that, remember back in season 1, they had their first date in there, and there was a table and chairs that Danny had brought in from the restaurant that he paid to deliver food to there. That's where their table and chairs are. It really does look like overnight or over a weekend they made this decision to turn the dojo into their home and basically just got a bit of furniture and shoved it in there and went, yeah, that's our home, sort of. But you're right, Danny does have a little back cave of his own in the room where he's got all the cameras monitoring the city, and he's got his computer all set up, or multiple monitors and multiple computers set up. Very cool. Chris, what do you think of the new location in Chinatown?
I really enjoyed this. I think we're probably going to need to come up with a new name for it. Instead of Bat Cave, I think that may be taken. Potentially like the Iron Cave or the Fist Cave. But I don't know. At the top of my head, probably the first one.
Yeah.
But essentially, I'm loving the reference and how they're using the space in terms of, as we see straight away when Danny goes to his the Iron Cave, you're going to check up on media again, and they make a joke about SpongeBob SquarePants.
Uh-huh.
There's a humor, a banter between the two of these characters, which actually ingrains it in they're a couple. Mm-hmm. Like, I think there's a scene later on in the episode where Danny comes in and he straight away, without even looking at Colleen, he starts talking to her and giving her an update and just kind of talking to nothing without knowing she's in the corner looking at.
She's on the phone, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very lived-in space. It's a very lived-in relationship.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what I'm enjoying. In terms of overall just being in Chinatown now, mm-hmm. This is really cool. It basically, to a point in season 1, Danny's space was the financial district, the Rand Enterprise area.
Absolutely. Generic business offices, basically. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Now we're going to get an actual lived-in community. We'll get Chinatown from New York. Mm-hmm. Straight away, actually, from my time spent in New York, I noticed at the end when he goes down to the subway, that's a real subway entrance, a real subway street. As he went down, I saw the name of the station. I went, I know that spot. It's like it's one of these kind of like, okay, they're actually going to make it a more lived-in area versus generic Rand Enterprise office building 1, or the unknown warehouse where it was close to the docks, but actually there was no docks ever really there in New York. Mm-hmm. We had. Absolutely.
Like bringing it into Chinatown, it's put him so much closer to the street rather than this idea that maybe he's parachuting into an area to help it out. You know, it really makes him part of that area. Very much like Luke Cage, and it makes what he does very much more believable. There's the references in season 1 to Kunlun and about protecting Kunlun because that was his home, and he talked about New York being his home, but ultimately he's got this district now, and I think it really connects him to that protector status that he has, and we see Danny protecting the streets of Chinatown here, with our first fight sequence as he's taking on the Golden Tigers, who are hijacking one of the Hatchet money trucks that are taking some kind of cleaned, laundered bills back to base. Mm-hmm. Again, we get to see a really good use of the Iron Fist here, where he takes out the truck engine to bring it to a halt. So and I love the fact that on comes the Iron Fist. There's no kind of impotency about his fist this time. He really does seem to turn it on very much as he wants to in order to bring about the in order to stop this truck. And certainly then we see him again hitting, creating that shockwave as well. So a really nice bit of action here right at the start of season 2, you know?
Oh, yeah. This opening credits sequence, or this opening sequence going into the opening credits, really is a statement of intent, isn't it? It's that moment where they're showing off the powers of the Iron Fist, like you would in a video game. You're kind of going, look how powerful he is. He can switch this on and off when he needs to, whenever he wants to. He doesn't have to use it all the time. And here's that classic moment where he's going to use the shockwave to knock all of his enemies on their ass straight out the gate. Great moment.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that opening scene. I actually sat down with my partner to watch this. She wasn't a fan of the first one, and that's fine. We can all have our differences of opinions. Mm-hmm. But I kind of showed her this opening scene, and I was like, just look at this. It's not just another superhero show. This is a martial arts show now. Mm-hmm. Not that it wasn't before, but they're setting the intent going, no, this is a one-man army who can take out a truck with his glowing fist and then turn that off and still, to a degree, beat the hell out of, 6 to 8 men without having to pulverize them to dust or shoot laser beams from his eyes or anything like that. He's a martial arts master. And that's what we got.
Yeah, it was really good seeing that. And I think the yellow scarf around the mouth was a really nice touch with the green hoodie, almost like an inverted mask. So that was fantastic, just to have that little touch to his outfit whilst he's on the streets, in a sense, hiding himself in the same way that Daredevil did as well. Certainly from season 1 with his black outfit, and certainly carrying on from Defenders, where we see him lighting up his iron fist at the top of a building, after Matt Murdock had kind of given him a call to arms to protect his city if he didn't come out of Midland Circle building alive from the Defenders. And I think that was really nice to see here.
Absolutely. It's always good to see a take on the costume from Stephanie Milinski, who's done all of the costumes for all of these shows. She really has a good statement of intent when she does a costume for these characters. It does look like something practical, something new, and something that Danny would wear. And it's in the Iron Fist colours as well. We get that proper green, the proper yellow of the Iron Fist colours. So definitely a good statement and definitely a good design.
Another really important thing is, he is there alone. There is no Colleen. And I think coming on to our point number 2, Colleen has retired her katana. And I think, in what we've said about the Chinatown and the dojo and in being connected both to Colleen with moving into the dojo as their home and on Chinatown, there are still these differences that are, I think, at least highlighted or nodded to in this episode, which is really nice to see. Like, I do get the impression it's not necessarily plain sailing with them, but Colleen has decided to retire her katana, and she is working at a community center in Chinatown, helping out people with accounts, tax returns, clothing, access to medical care, all that kind of stuff. So that's a really nice contrast between these two, even though they've come together. So it really adds a dynamic, I think, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed, I don't know, the change in character in Colleen.
Yeah.
We saw her recently in Luke Cage, and she was very much the same Colleen. But here, I get the sense something has happened, or she's progressed to a point since Luke Cage season 2 to here. She's become a lot less hot-headed. We later on see her at a scene where there's 3 of the tigers are potentially roughing up someone on the street. And rather than what we would usually have seen with Colleen, where she would have gone in, she first tries to call the police. I'll use that as the deterrent.
Yeah.
We do see her later on basically whoop their asses, which is fantastic. That scene, I'm assuming we'll get to it later. I like this scene, seeing her trying to change her life after what she potentially considers doing a lot of wrong in the world. This is allowing her to do a lot of right in the world.
Yeah,
potentially working with these people.
Yeah, absolutely. I do actually think it's quite a good continuation of her character in Luke Cage, because remember, she was only in that one episode and she was there to help out Misty Knight, and it was in the shadow of what happened in Midland Circle. And what we hear here is that's what's caused this slight change in her attitude, is what happened in Midland Circle. We hear Colleen say to to Danny when he says, well, you saved everybody, you saved the world, and her go, well, that's the glass half full version of the story. That's not my version of the story. So she's kind of punishing herself. With the help of Danny, she's coming around a bit. She's realizing that there are other ways than picking up the katana and taking somebody out. She's trying to make this decision to step back from the fight, but still being quite supportive of Danny. And as we saw in Luke Cage, quite supportive of Misty, and Misty pursuing what she needed to pursue.
Yeah, and I think it does hark back to when she was in the Hand. You know, she did think that she was helping kids get out of, maybe dire home life situations by giving them these skills as a kung fu master and teaching them karate and so on. So I think it's really interesting that, in a sense, it's a little consistent, but now at least she knows that it's honestly being done with this community center, and she's not building an army to send out to kill everyone. So, yes. There is a slight difference for sure. But I mean, I think, a bit of intrigue comes in from this angle as well, where, there is sort of an anonymous donation has been dropped off at this community center, which she spots. And the reason why it sort of is such a shock to her is that it's this old childhood heirloom, this box that contains a brush and a comb, and on the top is her family seal or coat of arms. They show it on the hilt of the katana as well, yep. And that's why, again, it's referenced as on the hilt of the katana. But of course, you have the katana blade coming through that. So I'd never really noticed it fully before. And seeing it there on top of the box, it is some kind of bird. And is it a crane? I don't know. Because it's all very much around this particular family box and heirloom that she had as a child. It's about her mother being someone that was the only member of the family that supported her and she had any real connection to. So I don't know. I'm saying that her mother is Mother Crane, but it could be one of the reasons why the Hand pursued Colleen to bring her into their ranks back in the day. But I'd love to know if we get more history of this seal, this coat of arms, because I think that would really open up Colleen and her backstory in a really good way. And so after she's got this box, then she heads off to do a bit of investigating to see, who had dropped it off. And, she tracks it down to this restaurant owned by Frank Choi, because it's his cousin that last had this box, a Mr. Yip. And, he's the... not really giving any answers. And so, again, Danny back at the dojo suggests that they go on date night, because you never know what opportunity may arise to ask a few questions to find out more about where this box came from. And I really liked that, and how it led into then, this really great fight scene as these kids come back to harass Frank Choi with the protection money that he owes them.
Well, the protection money that he owes the Tigers, and they're saying that they're going to take over from the Tigers in that community. It's quite interesting that we talked about in the synopsis, or you talked about in the synopsis, that the Golden Tigers and the Hatchet Men that we've seen throughout Luke Cage and Iron Fist Season 1, that they're fighting each other to fill the void left behind by the Hand. But actually these kids are also trying to push in to get some of this territory, is what we hear. Yeah. We hear them say that, the Tigers were going to collect it, so somebody might as well, so we're going to hit him up for this money. But Chris, this is the scene we wanted to talk about, the Colleen fight, where she goes into the back of the restaurant and starts trying to talk the kids down. And the reason why I wanted to mention, I'm sure you're probably the same, is because this really felt like a Jackie Chan style fighting scene. Colleen's been so used to always having the sword and having the katana to fight with. And what we see here is that she's using every implement and every tool in the vicinity of her in the kitchen to fight back against the kids. She's using a pot to block a knife coming at her, that kind of stuff, which really feels like the kind of style that Jackie Chan would have used, and may have come from the director in this case. Exactly.
That's exactly where my head was, to the point where we see the one of the Iron Gentlemen with this meat pulverizer on chain, 2 meat pulverizers. Yeah. I was like, first of all, that's an amazing weapon. It was just, it looked fantastic to watch. but she uses it against him as well, and also uses it against his comrades, because she's grabbing it and then flailing it at the other guy behind her, and then uses it to attack him as well. And you're right, it's a pure Jackie Chan style, and it was really, that's what actually, less Shanghai Nights, more some of his earlier stuff like Rumble in the Bronx style to it, where she was jumping over the counter, moving around, using the opponents. And that's the sense I got. That's it feels, I'm okay with the Daughter of the Dragon not having her fang for a foreseeable future of this thing. Like, her katana has been her main weapon. It's been her fangs for all of season 1, essentially. Right. Now we start getting to see her use her environment. We have seen that she is a very proficient fighter when we saw her in the cage matches in season 1. This just brings it to a more, actually, when she's in the environment, she doesn't have any weapon outside of her. She's going to use what's around her.
Exactly.
And I'm happy to see.
She's a good improvisational fighter, definitely. And when you contrast that style versus Danny Rand here, who we're seeing really fight straightforward and powerful. He's got control of himself, he's settled, he's got the power of the Iron Fist at his will if he needs to. And when he's fighting against the Golden Tigers, it's much more of a proper kung fu fight between the 4 characters that are there, until he starts to lose control towards the end of the fight and lights up that Iron Fist when he says, I told you to leave it alone, didn't I? Kind of thing. And without Colleen there to calm him down, would he have used the Iron Fist against another guy?
Absolutely. It was a nice contrast between the two. I mean, just coming back to it, like, I loved Colleen's fighting here. I loved the fact that the katana was replaced by a soup ladle. Colleen wielding the colander was really, really good. And then ultimately she does get a meat cleaver in her hand. So one of those kids that went up against her, he had better definitely watch out.
Absolutely.
That was really nice. And then I just loved like the calmness that Danny had in dealing with these 3 golden tigers, and just very clean, crisp, very almost traditional, I suppose you might call it, in terms of that fighting style. And I like the little gag as well of, there's nothing to see here, there's nothing to see, as you're hearing the pots and pans crashing around in the restaurant. It was a really nice kind of straight man, whilst his partner's going doolally in the restaurant, absolutely fighting for her life. Because, I mean, she was up against like 4 or 5 kids with, meat cleaver on a chain and other items that they had weaponized.
Absolutely. And I love that as the straight man, Danny's going, well, my girlfriend had a bad meal and she's gone in there to complain. She has a bit of a temper. Don't go in there. Got a good little moment. Nice fights in here overall. On our point number 2. We ready to go on to point 3, guys?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, because none other than the Steel Serpent is back. Davos is here, he's in New York, and he has a plan, and one of them is a shipment, of what we have yet to find out. Yes. And I really want to talk to you guys about this, because straight away we see Colleen is getting mysterious packages, and then we have the Steel Serpent himself hatching a plan with none other than our second favorite Meachum. Our first favorite Meachum? I'm not quite sure. A third favorite, because there's always Harold's head. I don't know. It's hard to rank the Meachums. But Joy Meachum is back, and I can't wait to see more of her. But because we have an Iron Fist aficionado in our trio, John, what did you think about having Davos back?
Oh, it was really, really good. I mean, I'm absolutely cannot wait to see how his story unfolds in terms of him potentially becoming the Steel Serpent, but certainly I know, we've seen him with glowing appendages as well in some of the pre-release Twitter Fest and stuff coming out from Marvel Netflix and, of course, from San Diego Comic-Con as well. So really can't wait to see that. And, of course, this shipment seems to be at the heart of all this, and you see Joy and him plotting away really here, but at the same time it's a really nice twist I think that they have, and I know we'll come back to it later on another point for Davos who needs answers, but ultimately with Joy here, she brings Ward and Danny to her new apartment. And I just want to say, I think my favourite Meachum is Ward Meachum. I like that wavy hair and his just how he operates, how he goes about things. But
I've started to call that hair the most expressive hair on TV because what we saw throughout season 1 with Ward Meachum is that when he gets angry or when things aren't going well for him, that perfectly manicured hair that he's gotten together from his millions of dollars starts to lose shape, and we do see that a little bit in this episode too.
Definitely. I love that moment where Joy, after meeting her brother and stepbrother ultimately, or childhood friend in Danny, that she's kind of doing that Marge Simpson thing at on The Simpsons with the Scorpio, where she's just sat there drinking a bottle of wine on her own, sort of making sounds by rubbing her finger around the glass rim. It kind of really speaks to me in that way, and
but she has nothing else to do with her life other than
exactly.
drink wine, right?
Everything's clean for her. She's got too much money, and she is just drinking that. Probably Eleven's bottle of wine or something like that. And I just like how Davos, he just seems so threatening with her, even though they're partners. And you saw this at the docks with Mr. Yang. I really like how Sacha Dhawan brings that kind of tenseness and uptightness to this character, who is an absolute fanatic, / lunatic. He's so zealous in what he does, and he questions Joy who I think she's a very good liar, because at the end of the day he goes, are you doubting? And she goes, no, I'm drinking. And I think maybe there is a little bit of doubt with Joy, because I do like that moment where she goes, yeah, I was slightly thrown by it because he was kind to me. Danny Rand was kind to me. Ward wasn't, but nonetheless Danny was, and so she is thinking on it. She certainly wants her revenge, absolutely, whatever their plan is that they're hatching. But I really enjoyed Davos in this episode because he is just so uptight. It's just like you want him to grow her so that he can let it down, almost.
Absolutely. And I have to say, there's a nice moment with Joy Meachum where she does explain why she's pissed off, because I don't think some people would have caught that from season 1. Why is she so angry at Danny, and why is she so angry at her brother Ward? We joked about it at the end of season 1. Is the reason that she's turned to Davos because, well, her painting didn't go up in the foyer of Rand Enterprises? It's not that, of course. It's that her father came back to life, and her best friend and brother knew about it and never told her. She was her father's favourite child, and she was never told that he was around. So she's carrying a deep-seated anger here. The fact that he's dead now at the hands of the Hands, which were brought to the city by Danny, and Ward kind of pushed her that way. She feels if she was involved, maybe that wouldn't have happened. So it's really important that she underlined the reason why she's so angry at these two.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really want to see what they do with the character throughout this season. We saw her grow from the corporate CEO, co-CEO, to by the end of it, this quite broken woman. From the family distress that was caused to her. So now we can see that a fire for revenge has been basically stoked, we can assume, by none other than Davos and some other individuals who I'm assuming we will meet throughout the rest of the season.
Well, Madame Gao possibly, because she was sitting across the table from them when they first met, wasn't she, back in
Correct.
Back in the end of Iron Fist. And one thing I'm really happy and really proud that they did do was to follow up straight off the bat with this. This could have been Davos arrives in the city, he has another partner, and then in episode 6, Joy comes in. I'm glad they just continued on the story immediately from where they left it off. They're working together. There's no point in hiding either one of them. They're both working together. It's a nice choice to do it that way.
Yeah, and I think what we'll get Gao in some form, the Hand in some form will be in later on.
That would be so cool.
Maybe, but maybe not the hand. I'm hoping the hand are gone for good and we have a battle with other foes throughout the season.
Yeah, but it'd be like, it's very much like Hydra. I think the hand will
maybe
there for every time you strike off a finger, another one grows. But no, I'm really interested to see where they go with this. I'm also very much interested in what they're doing with Ward.
Yeah.
What we've seen is Ward is in AA. He is not willing to share yet. He's still struggling with that. But he is very much Ward in that he has his sponsor who comes to talk to him, and then he meets her in a broom closet.
Absolutely. He's not willing to share his feelings, but he's willing to share everything else, though.
He certainly is. But that was the great thing about Ward. I love the fact that, it is all about him.
Yeah.
I love his total self-centered approach to things, because actually when he does seemingly care for other people, which I think he does, it makes it so more profound for this character. But I love that. I mean, even from Joy, we get that it's always about you, isn't it? Because he just feels that she's taking the limelight or something. There's a real brother-sister thing there, a real competitive edge. He needs to be the one that is kind of fettered with, mother and father's love. He's the one that needs to sort of barge in and make himself front and center. And yeah, I mean, even with the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and stuff, it's just so good how, I got an intern to bring these cronuts over. It was just so good.
And just to mention, we think it's Narcotics Anonymous because he was a drug abuser in season 1, not particularly an alcoholic, but it could absolutely be one of a range of meetings this guy could be sent to after the issues that he went through in season 1. Very possible as well. And just to mention, just to underline the story point that's happening here, why is Joy calling Ward and Danny to her house? She's getting back the money that she has in the business. She's taken that back, along with some patents, along with some possibly expired patents, possibly not expired ones. There's definitely something in there. We're definitely going to be seeing that come back in a later episode. What is it that's hidden in amongst all of that paperwork that Joy really wants?
Exactly. That was the bit straight away. My spidey sense went tingling going, she just wants to buy out here, there. Also expired patents. It's going to be fine. And I was like, oh, well, hold on. You're involved with Davos.
Yeah.
You're into evil. Yeah, there's something in there that you need.
Yeah.
Like some drug, something. It's going to get interesting.
Yeah, my fist tingled at that point as well.
I was wondering about this as to whether she may have gotten some advice from Jerry Hogarth after her recent moment where she stepped away from her law firm of Chow, Benowitz and Hogarth. Did she get some advice from her as to how to approach them? Is that contract that she's gotten drawn up, was that done by Jerry Hogarth maybe?
Well, she says it was done by an outside firm, so it could well be. So that would be really interesting to see that Hogarth has now gone and put her services to Joy rather than to Ward and Rand Enterprises. So,
well, we know that she did take the Rand contract with her, didn't she? But she might have done this on the side. It's not the same firm as was originally, but yes. Anyway, just a thought.
Yes, and speaking of cameos, I'm quite interested to see if we will see Jerry throughout the season. But more importantly, we have another new female character introduced in this episode. Someone with potentially a long lineage of comic book history.
Absolutely.
But bringing us on to bullet point number 4, Danny bumps into a tourist. Yes. Danny is working for a moving company. He is doing his boots on the ground, earning that every dollar, as Ward continues to slag him off for it.
Oh, yeah.
It's bringing me closer to the community. Multi-billion-dollar billionaire, and I was like, okay, now I understand it. It was quite interesting. But what we do see is, as Danny is coming out from a building with a load of boxes, we see his friend is being chatted up by a lovely tourist called Mary, and then Danny turns on the charm.
Yes,
He does.
He really does.
Poor
And
Albert. It does seem like Albert's a single guy, and this woman's coming onto him, and in swoops blonde-haired, blue-eyed Danny Rand, who is in a relationship with Colleen and knows he is, and is completely open about the fact that he is, but still swoops in and charms the pants off.
Yeah, he is the worst chicken wing man ever.
Yes, but what can we say? All of us Joneses, i.e. Finn Jones, there's something about our chiseled looks, our hair. It's just you can't say no to a Jones.
You're absolutely right, Chris. It's like as if I'm looking at Iron Fist right now as we talk on this podcast.
Absolutely. It's uncanny.
That's just because you're looking at a picture of Finn Jones and not me.
It's uncanny.
Truth be told.
Yeah.
But gentlemen, Mary, so she's a new character. She's been introduced. We have not seen this actress. We have not seen, in theory, we have not seen this character in the Netflix universe so far.
We've not. No.
But we see this Mary go home, and we start seeing these post-it notes written about the place.
I loved it.
It's an interesting take. I was like, okay, I already think I know who the character is, what the character is, and things like that. And we start getting these... should I just
say
reveal?
it, yeah.
We all know who the character is.
Okay.
Everybody does. It was in the press material.
It's Mary.
It is Mary. It's Typhoid Mary. None other than herself, Typhoid Mary. They have called it out. So there was two characters, there was brother and sister, introduced in season 1 of Jessica Jones. And for all our fellow defenders who've been with us since those recordings, we were pretty sure that the sister would become none other than Typhoid Mary, a well-known antagonist of Daredevil and many others. We were wrong. This is our Typhoid Mary. Press materials and everything else have said so. So what I'm very interested to see is how they bring Typhoid Mary to screen. She is known to be slightly unhinged. And I think we see this straight away where she starts having a panic attack, turning on all the taps.
Yeah, which I didn't understand what she was doing there. I was thinking, what on earth is she doing? I didn't realize it was to calm herself down. Until then I was like, oh, she's calming herself down.
Yeah. So the character will have dissociative personality disorder is what we can assume. And it's going to be interesting to see how they bring this to screen with so many different takes on it. And also for our fellow Moon Knight listeners, it's quite a similar disorder than old Mooney has as well.
Yes, indeed. They were thinking of other characters, weren't they? Not in terms of bringing them into Marvel Netflix, but in terms of what they could draw on to help with creating Typhoid Mary with this dissociative personality disorder. I mean, I have to say, I loved the post-it note or the post-it notes from hell. I thought that was really freaky because I must say I don't know too much about Typhoid Mary. Initially I was like thinking, oh, is this kind of like an abusive partner or husband or something like that, where it's saying do not leave the house, and she's kind of gone against that will, and they were out. And then of course, you've got stop moving things around as another one, and of course it's notes from one of herselves to the other self, and that was absolutely fascinating. And as I say, then it was like connecting why she was turning on all the taps. There was a reason for that, which was to kind of calm her down or focus her in some way, whatever it was. And then you kind of get that exasperation of the hysterical laughing, as I think she's still the same personality because she's managed to control it. I thought that was just a fabulous scene right at the end, and I really like the fact that they've introduced this character bang in episode 1 and actually shown her grappling with the things that are likely to play out later, where will she be friend or foe to whoever? Is it Danny Rand, or is she a spanner in the works for Davos and for Joy Meachum? So this was a really great introduction for a character that will have some significant role within this season. So I thought it was very cool.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful that we're going to see Typhoid Mary or the other Mary personalities. We're going to see those very soon throughout the season, because I really like Alice Eve. I really like her on screen in this show. The last time I saw her was back in Star Trek, the reboot of Star Trek, I think, Into Darkness.
It was with John Harrison, with Moi.
With Benedict Cumberbatch playing John Harrison, that's right.
Yes, he did.
Until he played Cam. But that's the last time I saw her, and I thought in that movie she was really underserved. She had a nice little role. She had some nice moments in there, but it was just a poorly written part for her. And already, even in this one scene, we can see there's some depth there. Bringing her in the first episode usually means that we're going to see her a lot throughout the season, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of her.
And speaking of depth, I want to bring us on to our final point for this episode. Davos needs answers straight off the bat. Episode 1, we see the main protagonist, the main antagonist come together for a heated debate, and it's really interesting. It was that brotherly rivalry, brotherly hate, love, everything passing between Davos and Dany on the waterfront, even with a mini fight as well, to show off that they are equally matched, if you want to call it that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, this really shows that Davos has got many long-standing issues with Dany Rand. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that, where were you when our city needed you? You were here. All I saw was cowardice in a man with a hand whore. He's absolutely going for the jugular with Dany Rand, calling Colleen a hand whore, calling him a coward, talking about our city. When for Davos that's Kunlun, and for Dany, yes, it's Kunlun, but it's increasingly and probably has overtaken Kunlun is New York City.
Absolutely.
I have to say, I think I love the motivation of this. That as this honourable fighter that Davos thinks that he is, that he was slightly jealous that Joy was able to look her opponent in the eye when she called that meeting, and so he had to do the same. I love the uncomfortable nature that Davos brings to Colleen and Dany, and Colleen sticking up for herself as well on the street when he bumps into them or meets them. And I loved his phrase to Joy where he goes, "Maybe I needed to hear that pompous, conciliatory tone." What a fab line.
Isn't it just?
Really, really good line to encapsulate why Davos, after giving Dany this chance to sort of make amends, to give back what he thinks is rightfully his, which is the Iron Fist, they are putting a plan in to action. Their plotting will move towards, trying to bring Dany to his knees to show loss that Joy has experienced, that Davos has felt. So what form and in what way that loss is going to be? I mean, will they direct it at Colleen? Will they direct it at his fortune? That contract? What is it? Or is it something more to do with the Iron Fist? So this is big stuff. And again, another great moment to have that up front in episode 1. I mean, there's no hanging around here.
Absolutely. And we do find the question that Davos was going to ask Dany is that if he could go back in time and change what happened, would he? Would he allow Davos to become the Iron Fist, step back out of the way, and lose the opportunity himself to fight Shell the Dragon? So, interesting. Dany still says no because he still feels that he's going to have it. There's some other great moments from Davos again. It's great to see him in the show. I love that moment when he says, "Why do people want to be in the city of New York? I just stink. I have the stench of the city on me. I want to get out of here." As he's talking to the Meachums and Dany, people that love the city. It's great to see how distasteful he finds this whole business, this everything that's going on. Even the conversation he has with the leader of the Hatchet Gang, Mr. Yang, where Mr. Yang has changed the terms and upped the amount of money that he has to pay. And you see Davos just going, "This is so disrespectful," as if I will snap that guy's neck in a second if I go anywhere near him again. This guy is just disrespecting me completely, and that's not how I do business,
100%. And I really love what we actually see when Davos brings back the training from Shifu, which is with mastery comes knowledge, with knowledge comes strength. That leads to the closing scenes of this episode, where we see Danny now has his, what we can call a private dojo-ish, a pile of doors, and he's using it to train the fist further. I really like this to show potentially our Iron Fist is losing control. For someone who is supposed to be centered, we see him nearly use the Iron Fist on one of the Golden Tigers, and here we see him just flaring it and beating down on this door. It's really interesting.
Absolutely. Especially that final moment of the episode as he pushes himself really hard, pushing through that door, punching through that door, and we see the red lights of the eyes of Xiao the Undying behind his head. Really cool. That's a nice little touch to put in there.
Yeah, definitely. Really, really nice little touch. And I think as well, it's interesting here that Danny, has that smile as he's just repeatedly bashing the door. And it is that idea that he is just using his chi power for nothing. And I think there's potentially a price here to pay. I think there is an element that, there's a lot of storylines where the chi power has become drained from the Iron Fist, and whether that is something that is happening here, because he's not using it in a centered way. He is using it simply to, knock a few doors as the metro rumbles past him to mask the sound of that. So I think this is really interesting, because I'm just wondering, will there be consequences in terms of this? I suppose misuse might be a wrong word for it, but this overuse of his chi power for the Iron Fist.
I think he'd probably argue that he's training it up. That's what it kind of looks like.
Yeah, it might be.
Kind of why I called it the private dojo that he's in. It does look like he's kind of training it up to use it whenever he can, because he wasn't able to do that in season 1. And in Defenders, he wasn't able to do it every time that he wanted to do it either. So starting out this season with him able to just light it up whenever he wants to and beat down doors if that's what he wants to do with it, rather than light it up as the key to open a gateway to another world, which was all the way throughout Defenders. This time it's, if he wants to smack open a window, he can use the Iron Fist if he wants to,
I mean, he's definitely much more in control of his chi power. So it could just be that, but I just wondered whether there would be some kind of price to pay for just this kind of use, whatever about trying to get control of his chi power. He seems to be doing it in a way that's non-meditative, bringing that calm. And it's just simply because of the grin that he has on the end. And maybe that's because he knows much more how to control it and the power that he wields and the control he has on it. So it could just be that. It could absolutely be nothing for sure. But I just wondered.
So, I'm not going to lie to you, gentlemen. I did not take it as Xiao Lao the Dragon. I took it as 2 red lights because he's in a subway. I took it as the placement was supposed to signify, maybe like it looked like there was 2 red things behind him.
Yeah.
I like the idea that he might be channeling more, and we may see some form of like Xiao Lao in this season. But I actually didn't even think of Xiao Lao. I just thought of it as him overusing the chi, and then potentially like a back surge and 2 lights just go off, or it's basically just 2 lights in general just to frame the kind of red behind him.
I think this is what they're doing in the show, because again, they don't have the budget of a huge TV show for these Netflix shows. This isn't going to be something where I don't think we're going to see the dragon in the show, but using it just to have the rumbling overhead of the subway as Danny's thinking back to his time fighting the dragon, the red lights of the subway. You're right, Chris, that's what they are, but it's the connection that's within Danny where the rumbling of the subway is turning into the sound of the roaring dragon, and the lights behind his head are turning into the eyes of Xiao Lao. What I just want one wonderful fan artist to do is just take a screenshot of that moment with the red eyes and just draw in Xiao Lao over the top of them. I'd love to see an artist just take that and do a rendering of Xiao Lao behind him. I'm sure we're going to see it in some fan art in the future.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I mean, but just so that I'm not crazy here, the rumbling of the train did kind of turn into a bit of a roar of a dragon.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. I kind of suppose I didn't fully hear it. I didn't fully see it. But now that you're kind of, again, that's why I love our podcast. Because now that you're saying you see it, I'm like, oh yeah, that does make more sense than just really bad train.
There you go. That's a great way to finish off our points for this episode. Good one, Chris. Any notes for this episode? I got a couple of quick ones. Anybody else got any notes for this episode?
Yeah, the only note I have really is, again, just the family crest on the box that Colleen finds in the community centre, also known as a kimono or kimono. And yeah, again, just what bird is that on that crest? Is it a crane? Is there some connection there? Is that maybe one of our first theories that may explode into the season or evaporate in an instant because it's completely wrong? But, I'm just saying.
We'll see.
I did think heron, but yeah, I like crane too.
Yeah, I like that too. But we find that it's a family crest, right? That's what the word "come on" means, is a family crest. So hopefully we're going to find out a bit more about the Wing family past and see where they came from. Give Colleen a bigger part and a bigger role to play this season as well, after the destruction of the Hand last season. Just a couple of quick notes from me. Just a mention of Ward's twisting of the Serenity Prayer. The absolute fundamental principle of the Serenity Prayer is that you must accept the things you cannot change because you can't change the past. And only by doing that can you move on from going to the lowest of lows, going to the bottom of being a drug addict or an alcoholic. And what we hear from Ward is all he wants is to change the things he can't. So again, he's going into this whole process, a couple of months into it at this stage, where he still believes that he can change the things that he can't, and that's all he wants out of the whole thing. I like that underlying of Ward's central character, and what he's about is, I will not accept that I can't change things to the way that I want them to be changed. So just a nice way to bring Ward in for me. And one other reference, probably a movie reference, this one for the MCU, a little reference to Danny Rand from Colleen. Chris, you skirted around it earlier on, which I was really surprised about. Isn't Danny Rand kind of emulating Steve Rogers at the beginning of this episode, where he's talking about the fact that he missed pop culture from when he was 12 and now he's catching up on it? So he has his little notebook of pop culture items that he has to catch up on, and he's been forcing Colleen to watch some of them by the sounds of things as well. So I think that's a little reference to the fact that they have a similar background, that he's been out of the culture and now he's trying to reintegrate himself back into the culture by looking up all the stuff that he's missed over the last 20 years being away in Cunlin.
I did skirt it for a multitude of reasons, one being that you are a Shield man and Captain America, so I will always give you the Captain America and Shield notes. The second one, I would love to see if they've actually recorded multiple dialogue like they did in Captain America Winter Soldier, where the actual notebook that we get flashed on screen had different kind of people in different locations and names and stuff, depending on what country, what region you were in when you watch Captain America Winter Soldier. So can you imagine it? We got SpongeBob SquarePants, someone else may get Transformers or Power Rangers, or who knows. It would be fantastic.
That'd be quite cool.
It would be cool, but the joke works so well.
It does.
What's there to know? He's a sponge.
And he's square.
Called Bob. And he's square. Really good. Really good. That's it for notes. That's it for the episode and our discussions on the episode. One last thing to talk about, guys. Chris, do you defend this episode? Iron Fist, Season 2, Episode 1, Fury of the Iron Fist.
Yes, I do. I take my hat off to M. Raven Metzner and David Dobson. These two gentlemen have reignited the Iron Fist, not just for me. I think they really have done a lot for everyone. I think when this drops and people are going to start watching it, and as they listen to our podcast and start digesting a lot of it, I think people are going to find not a new take on Danny, and not a new take on what we saw in Season 1, maybe just slightly more refined, a more mature Danny, a more mature storyline. And I think people are going to really enjoy it. This opening episode gave us everything. Gave us the intrigue, the plot, the questions, very little answers, new characters, old characters. It explained where the old characters have gone from to where they are now and how they got there, with some noticeable gaps, which we assume will be filled out in Season 2. This for me was another very strong opening from what we see in the Marvel Netflix universe, which is strong opening, set the groundwork. This felt for me something that I'm going to enjoy going through each episode, finding more. And as I said, speaking to you guys and speaking to our fellow defenders and finding these little tidbits like Xiaolo's eyes, the two red lights, which didn't hit that for me, but from speaking with you guys, I went, oh God, yeah, that was a really nice touch from the director. Just such a nice little piece that I would never have caught on. So yeah, there's multiple watchings here, hopefully. But yeah, I completely defend this episode.
Excellent, excellent. John, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist Season 2, Episode 1?
I do defend this episode of Season 2 of Iron Fist. I give this 4 closet quickies out of 5.
Weird.
Oh, yeah, indeed. I really just think they went straight for it. They were like a greyhound at the racetrack. They went really, really for it. And I thought
not Ward as sponsor, right?
No. Well, maybe there is some parallels there. Who knows? But it was just great that they went straight for it. You know, they brought all the characters back from the first season. Joy, Ward, obviously Danny, Colleen. I love them bringing Colleen and Danny together in the dojo in Chinatown. I love the fact that we saw our glimpse of Mary, you know, Typhoid Mary here. And I thought that was a fantastic scene with the Post-it notes in her apartment. I absolutely loved that. So well done. And I really want to see, you know, which way will she be going here? Is it a nemesis of Danny Rand? Because she has been. Or is it maybe an ally of Danny Rand in the Marvel Netflix world? I loved seeing Ward coming back, selfish as ever, but just still absolutely sympathetic as a character for me. And seeing Davos and Joy, both of them looking a little colder, a little more fanatical than the last time we saw them. Maybe not Davos so much, but a really solid opening to season 2.
Yeah.
And as Chris said, it's asking a lot of questions very quickly, and I cannot wait to see what happens and unfolds in episode 2. So, Derek, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
Yeah, I absolutely defend this episode. This was all about setting a new stage for these characters, setting everybody up as to where they're going to be for the rest of the season. And our new showrunner here has done a great job of setting up these characters for where they're going to be for the rest of the season. That's all I needed on this episode. I mentioned in season 1, my only episode that I had a real problem with was the pilot, because it didn't actually set up the story of where we're going to be. It didn't set up an exciting story of where we're going to be. This sets up some excitement and sets up some great moments for us to watch, and I am gagging to see the next episode of Iron Fist. So we will be going off and doing that. Obviously, fellow defenders, we are recording these episodes, as we mentioned, before the release of the show. But if you want to send us any feedback for any of the future episodes, just go on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV podcast. We have spoiler posts up for the first 6 episodes of the show as you're listening to this. So you can pop in there and leave your thoughts on each of the episodes as you go.
Yes, you can also email us through feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. Or if you want to send us a voicemail, you can go through our website at defenderstvpodcast.com, click on the right-hand side tab, and leave up to 90 seconds of your thoughts and feedback on any episode of Iron Fist Season 2.
Yes, but much like Danny is trying to get back to the roots and trying to connect with the community, we want to connect with you. So we ask you to go on over to Apple Podcasts, share the love of the podcast, and also write us a review while you're there. Much like we received a few new reviews on Apple Podcasts since we finished Luke Cage Season 2 coverage, and I just wanted to share them very quickly with you guys so you get a sense of what you could be writing about, what you could be leaving a review for. I'm not going to pay you, but hey, you know, I might even give you a shout out, like right now. First on, we had John Hayes, who titled his 5-star, that's 5-star people, review going, "I defend your podcast," and says, "Simply the best Marvel Netflix podcast out there. Thank you very much, John. Glad to have you on board, and thank you for that 5-star review. Much like you are a 5-star fellow defender.
That's so nice of you, John. Thank you so much.
Yes, and Chris will sell you an Audi in a moment.
Yes, yes, I am going all car salesman on this. Yes, I'm going to spin you a yarn, much like Therese, who gave this amazing 5-star review. You can tell they love the source material, they said. I enjoyed listening along with these guys for all their Marvel Netflix shows and their Gotham podcast too. They're very insightful, and you can tell they're true fans. It's nice to hear people who are excited about these shows as I am. I get tired of people with the negative things to say. Yes, Therese, we will never have a negative thing to say. Well, we'll balance them out always positively. Because you know what? We love these shows as much as you do.
Absolutely. But, of course, we will always call out things if we're not happy with them. I think we have proven that over the 175 episodes of the podcast so far. But we're always going to be positive about these shows. They're making our childhood dreams come to life here. If they mess them up, we'll definitely call them out on it. But thanks so much for that, Therese. I do totally agree with you. I'm sick of hearing shows just being negative for negative's sake, so I'm glad we can be a place of positivity for our fellow defenders. And thanks so much for joining us, Therese.
Yeah, thank you so much for the reviews, John Hayes and Therese. It's really good to get your thoughts and feelings on the podcast. It really helps us develop and build the podcast for the audience. And it's so good to have the Defenders audience, the fellow Defenders, back on board for season 2 of Iron Fist. So again, thank you so much for those lovely reviews.
Thanks so much for those 5-star reviews. Always good to have some 5-star reviews for the podcast. If you have any feedback for us on the episodes or anything we talk about, email us at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com.
Yeah, as always, fellow Defenders, it is a pleasure speaking with you. And we'll be back again with you for Date Night, where we will be speaking about Iron Fist Season 2, Episode 2. It'll be out later today, Friday, the 7th of September.
Mm-hmm. Or forevermore to be known as Iron Fist Day. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again next time.
Yes, thank you so much. I will also put out there that Friday the 7th of September is also Spider-Man PS4 Day 2. Iron Fist versus Spider-Man. Netflix versus PlayStation. Where are you going to be spending your time? Well, do you know what? You can actually spend your time with us, Iron Fist and Spider-Man, because there's 24 hours in the day and you can play everything and watch everything too, and even listen to us at the same time. Thank you so much, fellow Defenders, and I'll see you for episode 2.
Yeah, bye, fellow Defenders. See you next time.
Sorry to all the doggies out there for hurting their ears with our outro and intro music. But welcome back to Mississippi McDonald on the Iron Fist podcast. Bye.
Bye.